Mathematics. Poker mathematics. Poker is a set of skills and utilizing the capacity to understand circumstances and rivals to give you the favorable position in each hand you play. The game of poker is played among at least 2 players for a few rounds. There are a few variations of the game. However, they all will in general share these viewpoints for all intents and purposes. The game starts with every player putting down cash designated for betting. During each round of play, players are dealt cards from a standard 52-card deck, and the objective of every player is to have the best 5-card hand at the table. Players keep their cards covered up, and every player makes bets on the quality of their cards. At the point when the round is finished, the cards are uncovered, and the player with the best hand wins the round, and the cash that was bet during that round. The game is over when a solitary player has won all the cash at the table. Poker method separated into 4 suits: hearts and. Chapter 2: Poker Strategy. Chapter 5: Online Poker Tournament Strategy. So, maybe you're tired of the micros. Or, on the other hand, perhaps you've played a couple of poker free rolls and had some achievement, or won your last poker competition home game. Now, the fun and possibly rewarding multi-table competition assortment of Texas Hold'em poker may have gotten your advantage. Also, as most things throughout everyday life, you need to be the best as quick as could be allowed. With regards to online poker competition methodology, there are numerous ways to take, and most potential victors fall by the wayside because of deception or not realizing the means to arrive at the top. All things considered, this article investigates the stuff in the online competition poker world to make progress, posting the key strides to help you design a way for you to ascend the stepping stool from MTT Poker Little Fish to online competition poker shark. Pre-tournament game. Frequently ignored, pre-game is one of the most significant pieces of a triumphant MTT player's system. On the off chance that you aren't set up for a competition, you'll infrequently go far. So, how about we experience a couple of parts of the pre-game procedure to get set up for the competition achievement? Getting set up for success in the online poker world. It's certainly alright to begin in the realm of online poker trying things out. Money games, SNG poker, and multi-table competitions all have distinct intrigue, as examined in this fascinating article. Whatever your round of decision, when you choose, it's a great opportunity to step up and move past being a low-stakes fish. You have to make a domain that will enable you to perform ideally. Poker competitions are a great deal of fun. Contending rationally with rivals for a took shots at enormous prizes can be a surge, particularly when you're the last one standing. There's no feeling very like it in poker. Be that as it may, to swim through habitually enormous player fields requires some enormous energy, so you have to have some devoted time to play and study, as we'll cover in a minute. Online MTTs frequently take around at least 5 hours to finish, so get ready for a long poker competition as depicted by Dispatch It Poker. In a perfect world, you won't have different responsibilities going on around you while you play, so you can concentrate on your competition tables. Also, not playing so late, you wouldn't fret busting that last competition since it implies you can prepare some rest and be to work tomorrow. Ensure you have the opportunity accessible to submit. The vast majority can discover the time. I've helped poker understudies from various backgrounds: a specialist, butcher, housewife, understudy, truck driver, beekeeper, to give some examples. In case you're energetic about poker, discover an opportunity to submit, and afterward, encircle yourself with the correct apparatuses. Get poker following programming like Poker Tracker. Download Equilab so you can ascertain values versus your rivals. Also, when you're prepared to make the stride, consider getting some propelled poker hand examination instruments like Pio Solver. What's more, since you're now treating poker all the more truly, go for that better playing setup. Have an agreeable mouse and seat. Try not to utilize a PC that's a dinosaur, or whatever else that can keep you away from accomplishing extraordinary things in the realm of online poker. At long last, you ought to decide your bankroll prerequisites for the sort of game you're playing. You can look at MTT bankroll prerequisites over at topvaluepoker.com. Poker mindset for multi-table tournament poker. All set, in the mood for playing numerous tables, and all set. Now the fun starts. Challenge yourself contending in ordinary online poker competitions. Be that as it may, locate the correct harmony among play and study. Sadly, this is the place players regularly reach a stopping point. The three basic boundaries affecting a player's duty to improving their poker capacity are losing, social inclinations, winning. Hold up, what? Winning. Winning every now and again erroneously self-guarantees players of their capacity, and this makes them throw away preparing and reliably went for heaps of cash, eating up their bankroll all the while. It's the karma component of poker misleading players. For a few, furnishing them with favorable luck right off the bat in their profession, leaving them with an overinflated assessment of their capacity and feeling of privilege in the poker world. This is firmly identified with the subsequent point, social attitudes. In the present world, most things come effectively to us. Also, as we often possible get applause and compliments as we're growing up from everyone around us. So it's simple for individuals when they take to the poker virtual field to have unreasonable desires. And afterward, when things don't go their direction, and on account of losing, some avoid that negative outcome, essentially crediting it to misfortune or some other factor. That's a lot simpler rationally to acknowledge than attacking our conscience with the thought that those lounging around us at the poker table were predominant players. You can generally check your success rate by position, BB rate per 100 hands or BB divided by 100, as it's shown in poker following programming, to measure your capacity. By over and again using sound judgment at the table, sometimes sooner and others later. However, in time, the outcomes will come to show your poker capability as a triumphant player. Assume full liability for your poker life. Demonstrate a relentless constancy to accomplish a significant level of play, without being prevented by transient negative outcomes. Keep an unprejudiced and receptive outlook about your play, continually looking for approaches to improve and pushing forward. You're not the only one, in any event, for top geniuses. The psychological distraction of poker can be testing. Unobtrusive tilt or nervousness, or conceivably unpretentious types of self-harm, could be keeping a poker player from stepping forward and at last arriving at their maximum capacity. On the off chance that this is you, or as you increment your poker achievement yet experience mental detours, consider getting an attitude mentor to help. Elliott Rowe offers great MP3s and furthermore holds private sessions. Having by and by done these, I can vouch for their incentive in improving your outlook and consequently win rate. Don't undergauge attitude. A positive, clear personality is one that's prepared to work ideally and realize achievement. Finding out about ICM. ICM means free chip model and speaks to how the estimation of chips change after some time as a competition advances. Not at all like in real money games where the estimation of each chip is fixed. The estimation of a chip in a competition diminishes after some time so as no one can win 100% of the prize pool, regardless of whether you gather every one of the chips in play. ICM is a significant idea with regards to online poker competitions. Also, we'll talk progressively about it beneath. In any case, you can never find out a lot about it, so read this article by thepokerbank.com and ICMpoker.com. Stack size. Learn about M and stop using BB as a reference. One of the significant contrasts between competition poker and money game poker is that in competition poker, the blinds and risks, chips that players must place into the pot before each hand before getting their cards, Increment intermittently, prompting quickened activity and faster burnouts. Realizing how to alter your play dependent on how enormous or little your stack is in connection to the blinds is essential in competition poker. The two units most normally used to gauge stacks in competitions are enormous blinds and M. Enormous blinds are determined basically by taking your chip stack and isolating it by the big blind. The blind bet the player 2 to one side of the dealer button must place in each hand. For instance, at blinds of 10 over 20, with a heap of 2,000 chips, you have 100 major blinds, 100 BB. At blinds of 500 over 1,000, with a heap of 10,000, you have a 10 BB stack. M, while increasingly muddled to compute, is a superior method for estimating your stack since it considers the risks, which become noteworthy in the later phases of a competition. Most competitions begin with just a small and big blind paid by the players left and to one side of the catch. However, in the end, bets become an integral factor and should be placed into the pot by each player dealt into the hand. To figure M, take your chip stack and partition it by the measure of chips put into the pot each round. For example, with a heap of 10,000 chips and blinds of 100 over 200, and a bet of 25, at a 9-gave poker table, the expense of the blinds and bets each round is $5.25. 10,000 isolated by 525 is 19.05. So you would state you had an M of 19 or an M19. So how would you utilize this learning since you realize how to figure your M? For a beginning, decent players modify the manner in which they play contingent upon how profound their stack is in connection to the blinds and bets. Here's a couple of rules. With an M underneath 5, you ought to be moving either in with no reservations or collapsing. Don't simply call raises. Bet everything over the highest point in them. What's more, don't simply raise yourself when you're the first in the pot. Move holding nothing back or overlay. Your stack is short, so it's an ideal opportunity to stand firm. With an M somewhere in the range of 6 to 15, limit the range of theoretical hands you play as your stack size diminishes. Little pocket matches and fit connectors like pocket 3s or 5-6 fit play better with a profound stack. These hands won't tumble huge all the time, so when they would like you to have a second stack so you can exploit hitting enormous and get an opportunity to gather a pleasant pot. At the point when you have a medium or short stack, you don't have the inferred chances of having the option to win a major pot with theoretical hands. Recreational players always playing theoretical hands with a short stack basically wane their chips away. At that point, when they at last associate unequivocally with the failure, they can just win a set number of chips in any case. An entirely unbeneficial circumstance over the long haul. With an M value over 15, you can be playing more hands, stirring up your play by including a great deal of theoretical hands to make your game unpredictable, also allowing yourself to win more pots. The M20 stack size range on the privilege has progressively theoretical hands like little combines and fit connectors worked into it. More profound stacks give players greater playability. You can see more tumbles, possibly calling re-raises pre-flop since despite everything, you'll have a lot of chips deserted to play with post-flop and won't be focused on the pot like you may be on the off chance that you called a re-raise with a short stack, contributing an excessive number of your chips. More profound stacks additionally take into consideration all the more betting and calling post-flop, eventually giving players the opportunity to win greater pots, which makes a hand like 67 fit very productive. Since you realize how to gauge your stack in M, and how you can modify your play dependent on that, you're headed to winning your next poker competition. How about we proceed onward to some increasingly key methodology you'll have to know. Poker strategy, opponent types. Poker is tied in with changing in accordance to your opponent. How you change will rely upon how your opponents play. Here are a couple of portrayals of rival types and how to play against them. Tight, weak rivals play a predetermined number of hands, and when they do, they're reluctant to place in chips without the nuts, or near it. Assault these players and watch them overlap away their stack. Yet when they demonstrate responsibility to the pot, surrender as they'll much of the time have the products. Loose passive rivals play a great deal of hands, however, play them latently by simply limping and calling. At the point when you have a solid hand versus these rivals, try to value bet their genes off. They need to stick curious to see what happens and see every one of their hands to stand off, so make them pay for it. Try not to feign them as they'll call with any bit of cheddar. These rivals are predominant in the live money game field and lower stakes online competitions. Tight aggressive rivals, or labels, play quality beginning hands and play them forcefully. You may have the option to take their blinds pre-flop as they're sitting tight for strong, high card hands and pocket sets. Some may rapidly overlap when you bet on the failure when they miss the board. Be that as it may, remember they begin in the hand with solid possessions, so be cautious when they battle for the pot. Loose aggressive or slack rivals play a great deal of hands and will in general play them quick. This is the playing style of numerous solid winning players. Catching with more grounded possessions can truly function admirably against them. Anyway, as a rule, you'll simply need to make a hand against them and hang on until your expertise level is sufficiently high that you can see through them and perceive when they have a hand or when they're simply attempting to run you over. Overly LAG players can be classified crazy people. These are the players playing each hand and betting huge, or simply driving all in pre-flop each hand for entertainment only. Sometimes all you need is a nice hand and a touch of karma against these crazy people. Beginning period poker tournament strategy. The beginning periods of a competition can play a ton like a money game since the stacks are so profound. Set your profound stack to work by distinguishing the players at your table. Players' raise and bet sizes, recurrence they enter the pot, and sort of hands they play and get to confrontation with can be extraordinary pointers as to their style and ability level. Focus on the fun players at the table, hoping to play more pots against them. They'll be committing some normal errors or conceivably tremendous goofs you can gain by to get a decent start in the competition. Be somewhat more watchful against the more grounded players at your table. Play strong and hope to play more pots in position, particularly on the catch. This carries us to the significance of position advantage. Position. A basic idea consistently, however, particularly when stacks are profound. You need to concentrate on playing more turns in position. Accomplish this by opening and re-raising, re-betting, more extensive structure the later positions. The early position extend on the left incorporates just 11% of hands, while the late position catch range covers 56% of beginning hands. By playing in position, we get the benefit of seeing our adversary's demonstration first, which manages us more data about the conceivable quality of their hand. In addition, the player in position can direct the activity more, since they generally have the chance to place in an additional bet or raise. This is extra significant in the beginning times, since while the blinds are little and stacks are profound, there'll be a great deal of post-flop play. Despite the fact that the above extents speak to open raising reaches, that is, the point at which you're first to enter the pot, great players additionally do a ton of bringing in position, particularly from the catch position, since you're destined to be the last to act post-flop. Proceed a call raises with a genuinely wide range in this circumstance. This helps set up productive open doors for you to add chips to your stack. Yet precisely, how wide a range would we be able to call with? The 3 to 6 and 5 to 10 general guidelines can be a helpful pointer. 3 to 6 and 5 to 10 standards. Important figurings for gainful beginning period theorizing. While the 3 to 6 and 5 to 10 principles are a decent guide, particularly against flimsier adversaries, be cautious you don't get excessively free against the masters at a table. At any rate, not except if your expertise level is capable in such matchups. When calling a player's raise, another significant factor to consider is the whole idea. Gap idea. This idea is just that it takes a superior hand to call a raise than it does to make the primary raise. For instance, you may lift with half of hands from the catch. However, just call with 10 to 15% of hands versus a raise. Here are some different ideas which are significant in beginning time play, which we spread in detail in the Road to Success course, incorporated into the instructional exercise beneath. Target, point, fire, guideline. Find the powerless players and afterward ensure you pull the trigger. Maximizing and limiting. Examples are utilized to exhibit times when it's productive to go for 3 boulevards of significant worth, contrasted with times when a rival's calling extent gets tight, and checking to control the size of the pot is shrewd. Barreling and registration. Use these 2 key beginning time weapons, talked about in an exhaustive instructional exercise in the course. Early outlook. The no-dread way to deal with the prior competition levels and assaulting fit or fold attitude. Center stage poker tournament strategy. Current poker competition blind structures are generally quick, so you'll rapidly approach the urgent center phase of a competition. By this period, the risks have kicked in and subsequently, your animosity ought to be likewise kicked up another level. This is on the grounds that every player posting a bet on each hand brings about all the more beginning in the pot to battle for. Nonetheless, there is far yet to go, and you would prefer not to turn around to be too forceful and unnecessarily harm your competition life. Not at all like the beginning period where stacks are level generally. By the mid, organized fluctuating stack sizes will begin to be made around the table as players win and lose pots. Observing your rival's stacks and altering your play is vital to this time of the competition. So how about we separate the systems you ought to use with every one of the stack measures in center stage play. Playing with a major stack. A misstep a great deal of novices make when they get their hands on a major stack is calling short stack all-ins excessively free, thinking they can stand to bet. Except if you're playing a knockout tournament, where a prize is granted for busting a player, play each hand as productively as could be expected under the circumstances, and don't become really excited attempting to turn over the table or bust rivals. In spite of the fact that you can pick up influences and ought to now and again be hoping to apply pressure, regardless, you have to pick your spots. Having a major stack likewise implies you can show restraint. The blinds and bets are a moderately little cost for you to pay, so blend tolerance in with well-coordinated assaults. For example, taking tight players' blinds. Putting pressure on tight medium stacks that have begun to show up around the table is additionally a decent method to keep on adding to your stack. These players will figure regardless they have time. They can overlap and trust that a superior hand will get their cash in, and thus you regularly have a great deal of overlay value refrain these stacks. All-around planned re-raises may make them feel as if they have to submit such a large number of chips to proceed in the hand, and they'll regularly yield under the weight. Then again, against short stacks, you ought to be less disposed to overextend your bit of leeway. These players are getting edgy, and will hope to take a risk to bend over. They'll go out on a limb than a medium-stacked player, since they'll be blinded out of the competition on the off chance they didn't make a move soon. At the point when you conflict with other great stacks, notice in the beginning period play standards. Conjecture, however, pick your objectives, and attempt to play hands with a positional bit of leeway. Playing with a medium stack. As a medium stack, the weight is beginning to mount as the blinds and bets are beginning to consume your stack. This implies you'll need to begin hoping to collect chips decently forcefully. Be that as it may, since you aren't profound stacked, you can't really observe flops with a wide range. So what do we do? Taking and retaking is the name of the game in this circumstance. Take from tight players and look to retake from free players. That is, on the off chance that you presume a player is taking the blinds with a wide range, you can re-raise. With a medium stack, a re-raise or 3-bet as it's called, by and large places adversaries in a precarious spot. They realize they can't call too wide on the grounds that stacks aren't profound. And on the off chance that they proceed with, there'll be a ton of chips in the pot, with not a ton of chips left to win in a powerful stack saying. This frequently powers players to withdraw, giving up their hand, enabling you to add some pleasant pots to your stack, frequently without seeing a failure. This could mean putting your stack in danger, despite the fact that with a major stack, you'd for the most part just put your stack in danger pre-flop, with the superior possessions of pros and lords. With a medium stack, you don't have as a lot to chance, and should be effectively hoping to aggregate chips before you become a short stack. So if your opponent acquires it for a raise from the catch, and henceforth they likely hold a wide range, you may move in with no reservations from the big blind, with M9 when holding a hand like pocket sevens or expert 10. Here are some other significant ideas to find out about with respect to stack size, canvassed in the video underneath. Hand planning and SPR. Strategy contemplations with respect to mid-organized SPRs and a brisk equation for computing likely SPRs. Hand value shift. See how conjecturing can be less suitable short and how high card worth increments. Likewise, figure out how some prior theoretical hands may be utilized dependent on crude value to assault forceful or short-stacked rivals. Observation and HUD usage. The 10 HUD commandments feature key information to gather, and afterward observe this put to use to abuse explicit adversaries. Default play. We talk about how to exploit populist propensities. Exploitative play. See how even a little rival shortcoming can make an enormous move the best reaction. Equilibrium. Learn increasingly about this fair condition of play in changing situations, including 1. With beginning extents, 2. Blind play, 3. 3 and 4 betting situations with M12 and M20 viable stacks. Playing with a short stack. Short stack play brings about much increasingly all-ins and less post-flop play. Despite the fact that you can regularly still call from the big blind, getting a decent value, that won't be the situation with regards to calling raises from different positions. You'll be so short, calling will contribute such a large amount of your stack, the better alternative is to just move all in or overlay. Since there are less tumbles seen with a short stack, play is frequently numerical. With regards to re-upbringing a rival all up in pre-flop, the key advances are: Number 1. Anticipating your rival's go. Number 2. Deciding how well your hand fares against that range. Learning of this equalization of overlay value and standoff value is vital with a short stack. So for instance, on the off chance that you hold pocket 2s at M6 in the small blind, this could be sufficient to stick a free opponent's late position raise. In the event that they overlap, you add some genuinely necessary chips to your stack. On the off chance that they call, you get a decent shot to bend over. In any case, if it's a tight player from center position, now we hope to get called much of the time since they have more blends of solid possessions. So, we have less fold value. Besides, when they do call, pocket 2s figures to be in a bad way against their solid scope of hands that they can have. So the outcome is less fold value and less confrontation value. A terrible blend for attempting to re-raise all in with a medium stack. Similarly, fold value likewise assumes a key job with regards to using the chance to bring first up in the pot. As a short stack, this will generally simply include moving all in. An in with no reservations or fold system has the benefit of, in many cases, grabbing the pot without seeing a confrontation when your rivals all overlap. Or whenever called, you get the opportunity to bend over and show signs of improvement position to do well in the competition with more chips to play with. The elements to consider are your stack size and position. A shorter stack and less players behind mean more hands can beneficially be stuck. Moving all in first in the pot is as straightforward as following a numerical graph. Numerous individuals use a BB graph, yet this isn't ideal. as well as can be expected, be found over at pokernerve.com in the Road to Success course, alongside following vital short stack methodologies: fold equity erosion, prevent stack misfortune, figure out how to keep up your stack and work it back up to a major stack, super short and short, exactly when and with what range to stick with, ABCs, position, hand strength, and player information. The ABC variables to settling on choices at the table are as yet significant, at times more so with a shorter stack. Jam range, profitable short stack sticking hands, counting an excessively fast manual for beneficial short stack play. Vigorish, great strategy Dan Harrington has had achievement utilizing that is great to execute against extremely tight players. Late stage MTT strategy. The exceedingly significant phase of being on the cusp of getting paid is known as the cash bubble. Normally being so near accepting a portion of the prize pool, the hands you play can modify, at times radically. To all the more likely comprehend this impact, how about we further talk about ICM and the idea of the air pocket? The poker bubble. The air pocket comes about in view of the non-linearity of chips in competitions. This is because of the changing payouts. In case you're in a competition where 36 get paid, with 37 players remaining, and a moderately short stack, you call holding nothing back, figuring you're likely flipping 50-50 with an opponent. This is a debacle. While on the off chance that you were, by a long shot, the briefest stack, it probably won't be as terrible. It's much to a greater extent a fiasco if the player by you was attempting to hold tight and profit with a little stack. As we referenced before, the ICM model decides the ideal procedure to take. This strategy considers the differing air pocket factors in play. Information of ICM and air pocket factor enables solid players to gather a great deal of chips and get set up to win. A great deal of novice players will be excessively wary in the air pocket, setting an immense accentuation on simply getting paid, making them some strangely tight overlays to arrive at the cash, or hop up the payout stepping pool. Hope to put pressure on these opponent types with raises and re-raises. It's a prime time for some genuine chip aggression. Last table strategy. Breaking out of the competition just before the last table is come to is additionally frequently alluded to as the last table air pocket. Players will, once in a while, be edgy to make the last table, where they'll get the opportunity to score some huge money and perhaps win an online competition. The cash climbs a lot faster when on the last table, so individuals have to a greater degree motivation to attempt to make do for whatever length of time that's conceivable. This again frequently gives a chance to get some simple pots. Focus on the more fragile players at the table, and the tight opponents attempting to outlive one another. You ought to have, by this phase of the competition, assembled some significant data on your rivals. You'll likely have played a ton of hands with the vast majority of your rivals on the table, which will assist you with settling on better choices. Online, you can even open and watch the rest of the tables as you draw near to the last table, to attempt to create and sharpen a few peruses. Remember to take notes on poker locales with a note-taking choice. Stack size as consistently assumes a key job in the last table elements. A major stack can regularly be employed as a weapon, particularly with regards to forcing the mediocre stacks. Average size stacks have a high air pocket factor. That is, they have a great deal to lose since they ought to have the option to outlive the shorter stacks and get a greater payout. The last hand is absolutely an extraordinary case of utilizing a high air pocket factor to state a great deal of weight, bringing about an extensive chip infold, helping the player to bring this competition down. With this sort of mindset, being obnoxiously disapproved, you'll profit by circumstances and before long wind up engaging heads up for the title. Heads up poker strategy. Being heads up implies that you should post either the big or small blind each hand. This drives activity since players as of now have cash put into resources into the pot each hand. You'll regularly have position, being the catch each second hand as the small blind player. This implies you can utilize a forceful technique and raise a great deal. Nonetheless, when you butt heads with other forceful types, frequently blending in a great deal of limps is helpful. You wouldn't fret seeing a ton of failures, since you'll be the last to act on every road. As the big blind player, you'll need to guard a great deal with raises and calls, since your opponent will raise with a wide range in position. The outcome is typically a great deal of post-flop play. Giving stacks are profound enough. With shorter stacks, they'll be visit all-ins, since there'll just be one player holding an irregular hand to beat, making fold value high. Loads of players leave themselves poorly arranged for heads-up conflicts, which is sad given it's the point at which the biggest catch is in question. Be that as it may, players regularly don't have a great deal of heads-up involvement. All things considered, it's only one out of every odd day you play a competition that you figure out how to make it down to the last two. Attempt to get some involvement by investing some energy finding out about the elements of heads-up play. This article is an incredible spot to begin. Heads-up poker system, which clarifies a portion of the primary changes great players pay special mind to when playing heads-up. Capable heads-up players have set reaches they've grown, yet hope to alter as new data is found out about their opponent. Also, that is extremely the key. With one player left to concentrate on, it's extremely about discovering approaches to infold an edge. On the off chance that your opponent overlap in excessive of preflop, dazzle them out. In the event that they play too tight post-flop, continuation, bet a ton to get a great deal of pots. On the off chance that they are neurotic, hold up until you get 2 or 3 pleasant hands and get an opportunity to convey smashing blows. Continue changing as you find your rival's inclinations. Also, envision how they may be changing in accordance with what you're doing. Now, we're truly playing the incredible round of Texas Hold'em poker. Ideally, you can play superior to your rivals and win, and score a great deal of money. Now, here's a couple of conclusive considerations and tips for the individuals who plan to be victors. In competition poker, the faster you start preparing your psyche, the better. Regularly, individuals are vulnerable to growing negative behavior patterns that can enjoy time to reprieve later. Choose in the event that you are playing for no particular reason, or to win. On the off chance that it's the later, at that point having a bankroll is inane without examining quality poker system material. In the event that you had the cash to toss down on an online poker website, at that point you ought to have the option to take a portion of that cash and put it into poker training. You have to do whatever you can do to put resources into system. Start off little with some important poker books for a compelling method to improve your game. Yet then proceed onward to further developed techniques. For example, poker courses and examining. Everything starts with learning the essential system, and afterward, stirring your way up to understanding the propelled methods. Your objective is winning however much as could be expected from poker. Don't tarry from accomplishing that objective or you'll cost yourself time and cash. Try not to fall into the snare of reasoning, retaining different free substances pushing ahead, or you'll wind up like a mouse on a treadmill. Guided learning is a decent approach since it expands the time you spend learning, while additionally driving players to face the boundaries they must go beyond so as to accomplish an elevated level of achievement and ability. For instance, the Road to Success MTT poker course begins essential and doesn't mistake players for troublesome strategies. It establishes the framework, enabling players to build up solid essentials. At that point, further developed methodology is effectively ingested later. It shows center competition poker methodology like hand reaches to play, positional ideas, changing in accordance with player type, stack size contemplations, and air pocket and ICM factors. At that point, increasingly refined systems like lead betting, overbetting, and propelled registration strategies, and a whole lot more to arm you with the most recent strategies to infold an edge over your adversaries. Chapter 6. Things you can start doing today to improve your poker game. Number 1. Start re-raising with an energized range. Prior to the failure, most novice poker players re-raise with one of two territories. Most novices essentially re-raise with their top-notch hands. This is a dreadful technique since it turns the entirety of their excellent hands face up, enabling their rivals to call when getting the best possible suggested chances, or overlap when they're not getting the correct inferred chances. On the off chance that you turn your hand face up, you enable your rivals to settle on immaculate choices, costing you a huge amount of cash. When somebody becomes mindful that re-raising with just premium hands is a losing methodology, they for the most part move to re-raising with a direct range, which means they re-raise with both their excellent hands and hands they see as solid, for example, Ace, Jack, and 7-7. While this can be an extraordinary procedure against players who call re-raises it with hands that are effectively overwhelmed, for example, Ace-9 or King-10. It's anything but a decent technique against players who just call re-raises with premium hands and hands that do well against a straight range, for example, 2-2 or 6S-5S. You will discover not many reasoning players select to call raises before that failure with hands that do inadequately against a direct range, since they perceive that it is so adverse to be commanded all the time. More often than not, the perfect re-raising reach will be enraptured. This implies the range comprises of the best hands. For example, an ace, king, king, queen, queen, jack, jack, and an ace to king, just as hands that are not exactly adequate to call a raise with, for example, ace of clubs, 9 of diamonds, king of diamonds, 5 of diamonds, and 9 of spades, 6 of spades. Notice that by calling as opposed to re-raising with a large portion of your great yet not stunning hands, for example, ace, jack, king, queen, and TS, 9S, you get the chance to check whether you failure a long time before contributing a lot of cash. Re-raising before the failure with an enraptured range additionally enables you to play a more extensive territory in a forceful way, radically expanding the gainfulness of your superior hands. On the off chance that your rivals are uncertain, on the off chance that you have the nuts or nothing, they'll have a frightfully troublesome time playing against you, compelling them to commit exorbitant errors. Number 2. Start continuation betting more in heads-up pots. While most novice players know to continuation bet on the failure when their hand improves, they regularly neglect to continuation bet when they thoroughly miss the flop. When against just a single rival, particularly on flops that ought to be useful for your range and awful for your rival's range, you should continuation bet pretty much inevitably. For instance, in the event that you make a pre-flop raise from early position and just the big blind calls, if the failure comes A7-3, KQ2, or 8-4-2, you should continuation bet unfailingly. Failures you ought to consider checking behind on incorporate 8D, 7D, 2S, and 6C, 5C, 4C, on the grounds that, by and large, those ought to be greatly improved for your rival's range than for yours. That being stated, on the off chance that you raise from all situations with a tolerably wide range, as I propose in my books, you can pull off continuation betting on practically all loads up a high level of the time in light of the fact that any flop could possibly associate with your hand. Notice in the event that you just raise with a tight range from a particular position, you should continue to bet less regularly on specific flop, since it will once in a while be certain that the failure is horrible for your range. Number 3. Start 2-zooming more. While numerous players have gotten to some degree all right with continuation betting on most flounders, they still can't seem to understand that they ought to be regularly terminating again on the turn, in any event, when they don't have anything. As the continuation bet has become progressively standard, perceptive players have begun calling or raising them with a more extensive territory. To battle your adversaries calling your continuation bets with a wide range, you should keep betting the turn with a wide range, in any event until they make extra changes. Likewise, make a point to quite often bet again on the turn when the board radically changes, for example, when a conspicuous draw finishes, or when you get extra value, for example, when you turn a flush draw, excepting you don't get to registration. You'll be astounded at how regularly a turn bet will take the pot. Number 4. Start getting settled post-flop. As you climb to higher stakes, you'll locate that a large portion of the huge pots happen because of betting after the flop. The issue with this, at any rate for most novices, is that they have just experience playing before the flop. This is on the grounds that most neighborhood gambling clubs have an objective of getting competitions over rapidly so the players can jump into money games. On the off chance that you need to climb in the competition poker world, you should get settled with not getting the entirety of your cash flow before the failure. While this makes more circumstances where you're unsure about the general quality of your hand, you will find that, with training, the stream and turn become where you need to contribute the vast majority of your cash. Number 5. Start putting your rivals on a scope of hands. On the off chance that you're not putting your adversaries on a scope of hands during each hand of poker you witness, you're not effectively playing. On the off chance that you possibly focus when you're engaged with the pot, you will neglect to create crucial peruses on your adversaries, costing you a huge amount of value at whatever point you enter a pot. By neglecting to focus, you additionally pass up time spent figuring out how to put players on ranges. In the event that you make a point to carefully rehearse at whatever point you are at the poker table, your aptitudes will improve. On the off chance that you don't focus, hope to lose over the long haul. Number 6. Start rehearsing different types of poker. Particularly in the event that you need to play poker competitions, I firmly recommend you figure out how to play both in need of help and heads up. By far, most of beginner poker players are creepy terrified of playing against just a couple of adversaries, since they're compelled to play hands they see as frail. As a general rule, they don't see how hand values change. This makes them either over-modify or under-change, prompting colossal blunders. While this absence of comprehension isn't quite a bit of an issue in the event that you always play at a full table, in competitions you're compelled to play in need of help when the vast majority of the cash is at stake. In the event that you don't have a clue how to play in need of help, you'll be at a gigantic detriment. Money game players are not excluded from this idea. The most beneficial open doors in real money games regularly emerge when you can begin a game with just a couple of different players or late round evening time when the table is going to break. This enables you to play a lot of larger number of hands than ordinary against the weakest players at a table, enabling you to have an immense success rate. On the off chance that you won't play in need of help, you'll pass up these prime acquiring openings. I additionally propose you figure out how to play different games other than no restriction hold'em. Learning different games will constrain you to break free from any kind of default pondering standard poker procedure. That being stated, don't invest a lot of energy in different games on the grounds that the majority of your time ought to be centered around the game you hope to be the most productive over the long haul. Number 7. Start getting fit as a fiddle. Most novice poker players think poker is just played on the felt. Most players at the very top of the game play out the specialized parts of poker incredibly well. What isolates them is their psychological and physical molding. On the off chance that one player can play well for 8 hours and another can play well for 12 hours, the player who can play well for 12 hours will very likely win more cash over the long haul. Being fit as a fiddle will enable you to play longer hours without losing mental concentration or enthusiastic control. The most clear approach to show signs of improvement shape is to practice routinely. On the off chance that you're simply beginning to work out, don't propel yourself excessively hard. There's nothing amiss with beginning gradually and bit by bit advancing to a progressively strenuous daily practice. On the off chance that you're ignorant regarding where to begin, employ a mentor or search out the subject on the web. I recommend you work out decently before every one of your poker sessions. This will assist you with getting in the zone, enabling you to think all the more unmistakably. While working out is clear to a great many people, eating right is frequently overlooked. You should become mindful that what you put into your mouth will legitimately change your physical condition and attitude. On the off chance that you always eat pasta and frozen yogurt, you ought to hope to have shady judgment and be overweight. On the off chance that you eat lean meats and vegetables, you will think obviously and be fit as a fiddle. Going from eating all-out poop to eating a solid diet has completely changed me. I unequivocally propose you investigate it. Number 8. Start dozing right. I realize that in the event that I don't rest for at least 7 hours, I won't play my best poker the following day. It's as straightforward as that. I make getting at any rate 7 hours of rest my most noteworthy need when I realize I will play poker the following day. On the off chance that my companions need to hang out late around evening time, or there's a business issue that requests my consideration, I may overlook them and rest. In the event that I'm worn out at the poker table, it implies that I made a serious blunder the previous night. Number 9. Start recording and checking on your hands. On the off chance that you don't audit your play toward the finish of a large portion of your sessions, you're passing up heaps of important instructive time. I propose that you convey a notepad with you and record each huge hand of poker you play for an amazing remainder. You'll be stunned how your memory will bomb you on the off chance that you attempt to recall the entirety of your hands. I have made a free video clarifying precisely how I've recorded the entirety of my hands at the poker table throughout the previous barely any years. When you have your hands recorded, you would then be able to examine them with your companions and poker mentor. You can likewise audit them by the day's end to check whether you made any unmistakable mistakes. On most days, I'm typically discontent with the couple of hands I played. I try to make sense of where I turned out badly and alter in like manner. After some time, you ought to ideally observe your mistakes reduction and your success rate increment. Number 10. Start considering poker. On the off chance that you invest a large portion of your energy devoted to poker really sitting at the poker table, you're not concentrating enough. Before I, at any point, played a poker of hand for genuine cash, I perseveringly read more than 10 poker books. By examining before I played, I had a colossal bit of leeway over my opposition, who adapted basically through understanding. When I began playing, I got great at the game by investing around half of my energy considering, and the other half playing. Chapter 7. Poker Math and Probability. The primary supporting of poker math, it is basic. For each choice you make, while factors, for example, brain research have a section to play, math is the key component. In this exercise, we're going to give an outline of probability and how it identifies with poker. This will incorporate the probability of being dealt sure hands and how frequently they're probably going to win. We'll likewise cover how to figuring your chances and outs, notwithstanding acquainting you with the ideas of pot chances. Lastly, we'll investigate how a comprehension of the math will assist you with remaining passionate stable at the poker table, and why you should concentrate on choices, not results. What is probability? Probability is the part of science that manages the probability that some result will happen. For example, a coin flip has two potential results, heads or tails. The probability that a flipped coin will land heads up is half. The equivalent goes for tails. Probability and cards. When sharing a deck of cards, the quantity of potential results is obviously a lot more prominent than the coin model. Every poker deck has 52 cards, each assigned by one of the 4 suits: clubs, diamonds, hearts, and spades, and one of 13 positions, the numbers 2 through 10, jack, queen, king, and ace. Along these lines, the chance of getting any ace as your first card are 1 of every 13, 7.7%, while the chances of getting any spade at your first card are 1 out of 4, 25%. In contrast to coins, cards are said to have memory. Each card dealt changes the cosmetics of the deck. For instance, in the event that you get an ace as your first card, just 3 different aces are left among the staying 51 cards. In this way, the chances of getting another ace are 3 of every 51, 5.9%, significantly less than the chances were before you got the original ace. Pre-flop probabilities, pocket pairs. So as to discover the chances of getting dealt a couple of aces, we infold the probabilities of accepting each card. To place this in context, in case you're playing poker at your nearby gambling club and are dealt 30 hands for each hour, you can hope to get pocket aces a normal of once every 7.5 hours. The chances of getting any of the 13 potential pocket sets, 2s up to aces, is 5.9%. Conversely, you can hope to get any pocket pair once at regular intervals, all things considered. Pre-flop probabilities, hand versus hand. Players don't play in a vacuum. Every player's hand must measure facing his opponents, particularly if a player bets everything before the flop. Here are some example probabilities for most pre-flop circumstances. Post-flop probabilities, improving your hand. Now, how about we take a gander at the odds of specific occasions happening when playing certain beginning hands? The accompanying table records some intriguing and significant hold'em math. Numerous learners to poker exaggerate certain beginning hands, for example, fit cards. As should be obvious, fit cards don't make flushes all the time. Similarly, combines just make a set on the flop 12% of the time, which is the reason little matches are not constantly productive. Chances and out. On the off chance that you do see a flop, you will likewise need to comprehend what the chances are of possibly you or your opponent improving a hand. In poker wording, an out is any card that will improve a player's hand after the failure. One regular event is the point at which a player holds 2 fit cards and 2 cards of a similar suit show up on the failure. The player has 4 cards to a flush and needs one of the staying 9 cards of that suit to finish the hand. On account of a 4 flush, the player has 9 outs to make his flush. A valuable alternate route to ascertaining the chances of finishing a hand from various outs is the rule of 4 and 2. The player tallies the quantity of cards that will improve his hand, and afterward, infolds that number by 4 to compute his probability of getting that card on either the turn or the waterway. On the off chance that the player misses his draw on the turn, he duplicates his outs by 2 to discover his probability of filling his hand on the waterway. In the case of the 4 flush, the player's probability of filling the flush is around 36% after the failure and 18% after the turn. Pot odds. Another significant idea in computing chances and probabilities is pot chances. Pot chances are the extent of the following bet in connection to the size of the pot. For example, if the pot is $90 and the player must call a $10 bet to keep playing the hand, he's getting a 9-to-1 pot chances. In the event that he calls, the new pot is now $100 and his $10 ring makes 10% of the new pot. Experienced players contrast the pot chances with the chances of improving their hand. On the off chance that the pot chances are higher than the chances of improving the hand, the master player will call the bet. If not, the player will overlay. This figuring integrates with the idea of anticipated worth, which we'll investigate in a later exercise. Terrible beats. A terrible beat happens when a player finishes a hand that began with a very low probability of accomplishment. Specialists in probability comprehend the possibility that, in light of the fact that an occasion is exceptionally improbable, the low probability doesn't make it totally unthinkable. A proportion of a player's involvement and development is the manner by which he handles terrible beats. Truth be told, many experienced poker players buy into the possibility that terrible beats are the explanation that numerous substandard players remain in the game. Terrible poker players frequently botch their favorable luck for ability and keep on committing similar errors, which the more able players use against them. Choices, not results. One of the most significant reasons that learner players ought to see how probability capacities at the poker table is so that they can settle on the best choices during a hand. While vacillations in probability, karma, will occur from hand to hand, the best poker players comprehend that expertise, order, and persistence are the keys at progress to the table. A solid information of poker math and probabilities will assist you with modifying your procedures and strategies during the game, just as giving you sensible desires for potential results and passionate strength to continue playing smart, forceful poker. What is poker math? As overwhelming as it sounds, it's basically an instrument we use during the basic leadership procedure to ascertain the pot odds in poker and the odds of us winning the pot. Keep in mind, poker did not depend on blind karma. It is a round of probabilities. There are a sure number of cards in the deck and a specific probability that results will happen. So we can utilize this in our basic leadership process. Each time we settle on a choice in poker, it's a scientific bet. What we need to ensure is that we possibly take the bet when the chances are in support of us. For whatever length of time we do this, in the long haul, we'll consistently dominate the competition. When to use poker maths? Poker maths is essentially utilized when we have to hit a card, so as to make our hand into a triumphant hand, and we need to choose whether it merits continuing and pursuing that card. To settle on this choice, we think about two components. Number 1, how many outs we have, cards that will make us a triumphant hand, and how likely it is that an out will be dealt. Number 2, what are our pot odds? How much cash can we win as a byproduct of us taking that bet that our out will be dealt? We at that point think about the probability of us hitting one of our outs against the pot odds we're getting for our bet and check whether scientifically it's a decent bet. The most ideal approach to comprehend and clarify this is by utilizing a hand stroll through, taking a gander at every component separately at first. At that point, we'll unite it all, so as to settle on a choice on whether we should call the bet. Consider the accompanying circumstance where you hold A8 in the big blind. Before the failure, everybody overlays rounds to the small blind who calls the extra 5C, to make the total pot before the flop 20C, 2 players times 10C. The failure descends K94, and your opponent's bets 10C. We should utilize poker math to settle on the choice on whether we call or not. Poker outs. At the point when we're checking on the quantity of outs we have, we're taking a gander at what number of cards still stay in the deck that could come on the turn or stream, which we think will make our hand into the triumphant hand. In our model hand, you have a flush draw requiring just a single additional club to make the nut flush, most elevated conceivable. You likewise hold an overcard, implying that in the event that you pair your ace, at that point you would beat any individual who has just hit a solitary pair on the flop. From the vibes of that failure, we can certainly expect that on the off chance that you complete your flush or pair your ace, at that point you will hold the main hand. So what number of cards are left in the deck that can transform our hand into the main hand? Flush. There are a sum of 13 clubs in the deck, of which we see 4 clubs effectively, 2 in our grasp and 2 on the flop. That implies that there are a further 9 club cards that we can't see. So we have 9 outs here. Ace pair. There are 4 aces in the deck, of which we are grasping 1, so leaves a further 3 aces that we haven't seen at this point, so this makes a further 3 outs. So we have 9 outs that will give us a flush, and a further 3 outs that will give us a top pair. So we have an aggregate of 12 outs that we think will give us the triumphant hand. So, what's the probability of one of those 12 outs going ahead to the turn or river? Teacher's rule of 4 and 2. A simple and snappy approach to figure this is by utilizing the professor's standard of 4 and 2. Along these lines, we can disregard complex computations and rapidly ascertain the probability of hitting one of our outs. So, after the failure, we have 12 outs, which utilizing the rule of 4 and 12, we can figure rapidly that the probability of hitting one of our outs is 12 times 4, or 48%. The precise percentage really works out to 46.7%. However, the standard of 4 and 2 offers us a nearby enough response for the reasons we need it for. On the off chance that we don't hit one of our outs on the turn, at that point, just the river left to come, the probability that we'll hit one of our 12 outs drops to 12 times 2, 24%. Again, the precise percentage works out to 27.3%. As should be obvious, the rule of 4 and 2 doesn't give us a definite percentage. However, it's entirely close and a decent, brisk, and simple approach to figure it out in your mind. Now, let's condense what we've determined up until now. We gauge that, to win the hand, you have 12 outs. We've determined that after the flop with 2 cards, still to come, there's around a 48% possibility you'll hit one of your outs. Now, we know the odds of us winning. We have to take a gander at the arrival we'll get for our bet, or at the end of the day, the pot odds. Differentiating variance from bad play. A crucial end product to expected value is the idea that your whole poker profession is only one long, ceaseless session, with a wide range of good and bad times en route that are, in all honesty, outside of your control. Poker is probability-based, which means frequently things won't go the manner in which you need them to. These change-caused hindrances are unimportant. Everybody experiences them. You, me, Phil Ivey, and Phil Nobody. Everybody. The key to augmenting the intensity of poker math incorporates figuring out how to isolate change from real awful play. You can't write what you don't gauge, and having the option to observe the distinction among possibility and poor choices is an imperative math expertise to learn. Unlearning bad math. Similarly as EV and variance are key poker ideas to learn and grasp, there are a bunch of math certainties that should be quickly discarded from your brain. Those incorporate the idea that a major stack can menace a little one, that any cash you put into the center of the pot by one way or another has a place with you, the fantasy that you need tremendous example sizes to make EV work, and the very basic awful guidance that invades the idea of pot duty. The sooner you unlearn this flawed guidance you've grabbed regarding these matters, the happier you'll be. Chapter 9. Shocking Truth About Poker Math. At the point when joined together, the words poker and math are two of the most dreaded in the English language. Indeed, at any rate among poker players. For some poker players, there's something conflicting, outsider, and even startling about those two little words when utilized in a similar sentence. Particularly when one is disclosed to, it's difficult to succeed at poker except if and until you comprehend the science of the game. Maybe our aggregate logarithmic tension is established in some sentimental vision of poker, sharpened and owned by endless films and TV appearances, where we've seen the game depicted as a brave fight among great and fiendishness. Brett Maverick busting a glaring desperado in a round of draw poker. Mike McDermott battling for his spirit against Teddy KGB in a high-stakes hold'em confrontation. Hell, James Bond rivering a straight flush against Lashif in perhaps the most ridiculous game at any point played. And goodness, staring the world as what tops off an already good thing. These senseless, sentimental delineations of poker in motion pictures are only that, senseless. Further, they are as far expelled from math as canines are from the moon. That is the terrible news. We've trained that poker should be a skirmish of brains and brain science and guts and fun, not slide rules and number crunchers. In any case, regardless, poker is supported by math. Poker is, in a general sense, a probability-based betting undertaking. It's a challenge that is established on the ideas of possibility and the inflexibility of anticipated worth. It's about chances and outs and proportions. It's frequencies and stacks, sizes and pot sizes. Hell, even the workmanship of perusing another rival is as much about the measurable patterns of that player as it is whatever else. On the off chance that you know villain X feigns Y% of the time, you'll comprehend what to do in circumstance Z. Truth be told, in the engine, you'll see that poker is put together 100% with respect to math. Truly 100%. Be that as it may, It's not hard, troublesome math. Indeed, excessively numerous poker specialists overcomplicate the subject. They cause poker math to appear to be frightening and needing mind-boggling and costly books, recordings, and courses. Ugh. All things considered, I'm here to disclose to you that they have it wrong. The significant bits of poker math are not just simple to get a handle on. They're really, might I venture to state, enjoyable to learn. Try not to trust me. Peruse on to give a chance to persuade you generally. The problem with poker math. Alright, disclaimer time. I'm in the minority with regards to science. Numbers and conditions consistently came effectively to me. Math just clicked for me from the earliest starting point. In secondary school, I maintained a rewarding side business wherein I did other understudies geometry and polynomial math schoolwork assignments. I could conceivably have really stepped through exams for a portion of those understudies. I'll fess up soon if and when I'm persuaded the legal time limit never again applies. I at that point proceeded to show math at a junior college while I was getting my degree in aviation and mechanical building. I not just get math, I very much love it. Yet, I additionally comprehend those of you that don't feel along those lines. A considerable lot of my poker understudies have math fears. A portion of my nearest poker-playing companions have conceded their unease with the subject. Indeed, even my very own generally splendid life partner is math-loath. Exacerbating the situation is the general disarray about what poker math is fundamental and what isn't. Every one of those previously mentioned poker specialists love to discuss esoterica like Nash equilibrium conditions, independent chip models, standard deviations, and probability hypothesis. Blah blah blah. None of those have a damn activity with really beating a mid-stakes game, yet you'd never realize it by perusing these people's material. You'd think you need to learn halfway differential conditions and Laplacian approximations to realize how to productively call an opponent's bet. This is foolishness, plain and basic. What's the distinction between the numerical ideas we do need to learn and those that are insignificant? What is the poker math that issues for most of us? I'm happy you asked. Beginning learner poker math. To start learning poker math, we may start with something many refer to as the pair 2 principle, otherwise called the 80-20 standard. This thought places that there is typically something little and straightforward that will get you most of the route to a given outcome. A little subset of activities, 20%, will bring about a critical lion's share of additions, around 80%. Poker math falls solidly into this classification. We just need to get familiar with a little bunch of math aptitudes to receive a lion's share of its rewards. The second key to understanding poker math is the manner by which it identifies with choices. In betting games like poker, choices are everything. Individual hand results are useless. I actually couldn't mind less if your quad aces got broke in a hand or not. What I do totally think about is whether you got in your cash effectively or not with those 4 rockets. Principal poker math concepts. There are a great deal of math viewpoints to poker. Yet truly, there are just not many that issue on the off chance that you need to get the greatest pair 2 value for your money impact. These ideas are: embracing expected value. On the off chance that you adapt just a single thing about poker, this is it. Everything. No, how about we compose that as everything? In poker comes down to the expected value, or EV, as is usually known. When you understand that a decent choice in poker is one that is plus EV, and an awful choice is one that is minus EV, you will have made a quantum jump in your comprehension of how to beat the game. I can't pressure enough the significance of this idea. Learn it, grasp it, use it. Differentiating variance from bad play. A crucial end product to expected value is the idea that your whole poker profession is only one long, ceaseless session, with a wide range of good and bad times en route that are, in all honesty, outside of your control. Poker is probability-based, which means frequently things won't go the manner in which you need them to. These change-caused hindrances are unimportant. Everybody experiences them. You, me, Phil Ivey, and fail nobody, everybody. The key to augmenting the intensity of poker math incorporates figuring out how to isolate change from real awful play. You can't write what you don't gauge, and having the option to observe the distinction among possibility and poor choices is an imperative math expertise to learn. Unlearning bad math. Similarly as EV and variance are key poker ideas to learn and grasp, there are a bunch of math certainties that should be quickly discarded from your brain. Those incorporate the idea that a major stack can menace a little one, that any cash you put into the center of the pot by one way or another has a place with you, the fantasy that you need tremendous example sizes to make EV work, and the very basic awful guidance that invades the idea of pot duty. The sooner you unlearn this flawed guidance you've grabbed regarding these matters, the happier you'll be. Cautious poker math. At the point when you're first learning poker, you will, for the most part, be in a deer-in-the-headlights receptive mode. Different players will bet into you, raising your opens, assaulting your blinds, and tormenting you with enormous post-flop bets and rushes. Here and there, you'll have made a hand and just need to know whether you're ahead or not. Different times, you'll be on a draw and need to know whether you're right to call or not. Figuring out how to respond in these guarded circumstances is imperative to succeeding at poker, particularly at the little stakes. The uplifting news is that it's not very difficult to learn guarded math, and, surprisingly better, the math will consistently prompt the correct choice. You basically need to appraise the chances and contrast them with the quality of your hand, i.e., your pot value. In the event that the chances are more prominent than the value, overlap. Different, call. Simple, easy. The awful news is not many individuals really try to set aside the effort to figure out how to do this. Rather, these players simply surmise at the correct play, or more regrettable, get enveloped with attempting to settle on hands versus settle on plus EV choices. Try not to be one of these individuals. Rather, become familiar with the accompanying two fundamental things. Estimating odds. One of the primary things you should have the option to do in poker is compute direct pot chances. The subsequent thing is to gauge inferred chances. What's more, the third is comprehend turnaround inferred chances. On the off chance that you can accomplish these three things, you're most of the way to seeing how to settle on gainful choices in guarded poker circumstances. Estimating pot equity. The second piece of guarded poker math is figuring out how to appraise your pot value, i.e., how solid is your hand comparative with your opponent's. The terrible news is that evaluating pot value requires some central hand understanding capacities. The uplifting news is that it's not awfully hard to pair to this part of poker math. There are an assortment of approaches to gauge pot values, including strategies like tallying outs, remembering a couple of basic hand versus hand type values, and using value-adding machines. Hostile poker math. Hostile math is utilized to assess every one of the circumstances in which you're on the assault in a poker hand. As I was educated back toward the start of my poker vocation, it's quite often preferable to discharge the firearm over attempt to evade a slug. Figuring out how to apply hostile-related math effectively in these circumstances is vital. Basic hostile circumstances incorporate blind taking, continuation betting, general worth betting, feigning, and semi-feigning. These dependent on two essential statutes that must be educated. Estimating fold equity. At whatever point you bet into somebody or raise their bet, there's a probability that they will fold. Here and there, we need the other player to filth, and some of the time we don't. In any case, we have to see exactly how likely a rival is to overlay if fire a bet or raise into the center. We express this probability by means of overlay value, or FE for short. In the event that we comprehend what our pot value and overlay value is in hand, we quite often know precisely what we should do and why. Sizing bets correctly. Identified with the idea of fold value is that of bet estimating. Exactly how enormous would it be a good idea for us to bet or raise or re-raise. The magnificence of no restriction is, well, there are no restrictions to this part of poker. The drawback, obviously, is that the vast majority have no idea with regards to the measuring of their bets and raises. The uplifting news is it's really in reality simple to learn. Other poker math. When you ace these pair 2 essentials of math, you're allowed to extend and improve with more nuanced and propelled math strategies. In any case, to begin, surely to start succeeding at mid-stakes and underneath, the previously mentioned math is all you truly need. Truly, that is it. Everything else doesn't generally make a difference that much. In the event that you get familiar with these essential ideas, and afterward strictly apply them at the tables, you will succeed at poker. Don't, and you won't. The River Showdown. Poker math is altogether probability-based. This implies you can make the ideal, math-based choices and still lose an individual hand. Hell, you can lose different turns in succession. Be that as it may, on the off chance that you grasp the math and stick with it, paying little heed to results, you will, in the long run, become extremely rich. Trust me, folks, the math don't lie. This has been Poker Math and Strategies. Advanced strategies to use poker math, plus tips and tricks to play like a pro. Written by Phil Meyer. Narrated by Julius Z. Dyer. Copyright 2019 by Phil Meyer. Production copyright by Phil Meyer.
Advanced Poker Math. A complete beginner's guide to basic, effective, and advanced strategies to use poker math in the world of poker. Written by Phil Meyer. Narrated by Richard Fannin. Introduction. Recalling the history of poker. The game was presented in America throughout the early 19th century. The initial game utilized a 20-card deck and included merely dealing out 5-card hands, with gamers consequently betting on them. Understanding hand rankings and a little something about the opportunities of making sure hands would undoubtedly serve gamers well. The associated mathematics included wasn't extremely complex. Later on came the basic 52-card deck, along with the intro of the draw, implying gamers might wager before and after the preliminary offer, and after that once again after disposing of and drawing cards to enhance their hands. At some point after that came the intro of a 5-card stud, then later on the 7-card stud. Brand new variations of the game offered brand new obstacles in addition to much more wagering rounds. Poker ended up being more complex, therefore too was the mathematics of poker. Towards the latter part of the 19th century came the very first poker technique books, concentrating on the mathematics behind poker in addition to discussing the guidelines and other elements of the game. The title of Henry T. Winterblossam's book, The Game of Draw Poker, Mathematically Illustrated, was among the very first full-length book about poker method, which provides you a concept of the author's focus on mathematics and poker. Over subsequent years, other technique authors continued in the exact same vein as Winterblossom, consisting of their texts being loaded with numbers highlighting the possibilities of filling various draws. In regard to 5-card draw, Mike Caro notoriously revealed and shared the mathematics of how to use it at the table in Doyle Brunson's Super System, to which he likewise contributed many more tables